For the past 9 years, I have been quietly tracking commodity futures and harvest projections for one reason. I hate surprises. While everyone else is reading the same prepper blogs and hoarding the same freeze-dried buckets, I have been watching something most people ignore completely: the 2026 harvest reports. Number 14 on this list is sitting at your local Asian grocery right now for under $4. And when those reports drop next spring, the price is going to triple before most people even notice. The problem is that when everyone reads the same advice and buys the same stuff, that is exactly what disappears first. Back in March 2020, I watched rice vanish from Costco in 2 hours. But the rice I had been buying for years, the stuff I am about to show you, was still fully stocked 3 weeks later. This is not about hoarding. This is about knowing which staples are tied to the crops that are already failing and which ones nobody is paying attention to yet. If you want to avoid paying double or triple next year for things you are buying today, hit subscribe right now, because I am about to walk you through 22 grocery staples that are about to get expensive, and more importantly, the exact versions of those staples that will still be available when the panicked buyers clear the shelves. Number 1 is going to surprise you. Rolled oats. Not the trendy steel-cut stuff. Not the instant packets. Old-fashioned rolled oats in the big cardboard cylinder. Here is what nobody talks about. The 2025 early harvest data from the Northern Plains is already showing a 19% drop in oat yields due to late spring freezes. I got this directly from a commodities broker who has been in grain futures for 14 years. Oats are one of those crops people assume will always be cheap and always be available. Wrong. Last summer, I bought a case of 6 42-ounce containers from a bulk supplier for $18 total. That is $3 per container. Right now, those same containers are $4 at most grocery stores. By late 2026, you're looking at $8 to $10 each, and that is if they are in stock. Here is a mechanic nobody thinks about. Oats store for 30 years in a food-grade bucket with an oxygen absorber. 30 years. You can eat them as oatmeal, grind them into flour, use them in no-bake energy bars, mix them into ground meat to stretch it further. I opened a container last month that I sealed in 2020. Tasted identical to fresh. Most people panic by rice and beans. Oats sit there untouched, which is exactly why you want them now. Look, food prices are climbing faster than most families can adjust their budgets. I have done the math for you and put together a free emergency pantry blueprint that lists the exact 22 items you need, where to buy them, and how to store them so they actually last. It can feed a family of 4 for 3 weeks and costs less than 2 grocery trips. You can grab it for free at the link in the description so you can stop guessing and start preparing with a real plan. Number 2, canned tomato paste. Not diced tomatoes. Not sauce. Paste. The tiny 6-ounce cans. Here is the thing. California produces 95% of the processing tomatoes in the United States. The 2025 water allocations for the Central Valley have already been cut by 30%. I have a friend who works logistics for a West Coast distributor, 16 years in the business, and he told me flat out that tomato paste is going to double by summer 2026. Right now, you can get a 6-ounce can for about 89 cents at most grocery stores. I bought a case of 24 last month for $19. That is 79 cents per can. Tomato paste is a game changer because it is concentrated. One tiny can equals an entire 15-ounce can of sauce when you add water. You can make pizza sauce, pasta sauce, curry base, chili, soup. It stores for 5 years minimum, longer if kept cool. Most preppers ignore it because it does not look like a lot. That is exactly why it will still be there when the diced tomatoes are gone. Number 3 sounds boring, but it is absolute gold. Bouillon cubes. Chicken, beef, vegetable does not matter. Here is what people miss. Bouillon cubes are pure concentrated salt and fat with just enough flavoring to make anything taste like food. A single cube has enough sodium to flavor 4 cups of liquid. I have got cubes in my pantry that are 3 years old. Still perfect. Right now, a jar of 25 cubes costs about $2. By 2026, with grain prices spiking and poultry costs going up, that same jar will hit $5 or $6. Here is the real value. You can make bland bulk staples actually edible. Plain rice with a bouillon cube tastes like a meal. Lentils, beans, Oats. Anything boring becomes something your family will actually eat. Food monotony causes decision fatigue. Boring food makes you stupid when you need to be sharp. Bouillon solves that for $2. Most people skip it because it is not sexy. Perfect. Number 4. Dried lentils. Not canned, dried. Specifically red lentils and green lentils. Here is the insight nobody connects. Lentils are a cool season crop grown primarily in Montana, North Dakota, and Canada. The same regions that got destroyed by drought in 2024 and early freezes in 2025. I tracked the USDA reports myself. Lentil yields are projected to drop 22% for the 2026 harvest. Right now, you can get a 1-pound bag of dried lentils for about $1.50 at most grocery stores. I buy mine in 25-pound sacks from a bulk supplier for $28. That is a little over $1 per pound. By next year, that pound bag is going to be $4 minimum. Here is a mechanic. Lentils cook in 20 minutes with no soaking. No soaking. They are 25% protein. They store for 10 years easily, longer in airtight containers. You can make soup, curry, stew, or mash them into a paste and use them like refried beans. Last winter, during a power outage, I made red lentil stew on a camp stove in 30 minutes. Fed 4 people. Cost about $3 total. Most panic buyers have never even bought lentils, which means they will still be sitting there fully stocked. Number 5 is something you probably have not thought about. Powdered milk. Not the stuff in the refrigerated section. The powdered kind in the box or the pouch. Here is what nobody mentions. Whole milk powder and non-fat milk powder store completely differently. Whole milk powder is fat, so it stores for about 2 years. Non-fat stores for 10 years or more in a sealed container. Right now, a pouch of non-fat milk powder that makes about 8 quarts costs around $12. By late 2026, with dairy costs climbing and feed grain prices spiking, that same pouch will be $25 to $30. I use powdered milk for baking, coffee, oatmeal, emergency drinking. I opened a pouch last week that I bought in 2021, mixed it with cold water. Tasted fine. Not amazing, but fine. Here's the trick. Mix it the night before and let it sit in the fridge. It rehydrates better and tastes way closer to real milk. Most people ignore powdered milk because they think it tastes bad. They are right if you mix it and drink it immediately. But if you use it smart, it is one of the cheapest proteins you can store long term. Number 6. White rice, but not the kind you think. Everyone buys jasmine or basmati. You want parboiled rice, also called converted rice. Here is why. Parboiled rice has been steamed before milling, which pushes nutrients into grain and makes it almost impossible to overcook. It also stores longer than regular white rice. I have parboiled rice in 5-gallon buckets from 2018. Opened one last year. Perfect. Right now, a 20-pound bag of parboiled rice costs about $18. By 2026, with rice tariffs increasing and Asian export restrictions tightening, that same bag will hit $35 or more. Here's what I do. I buy it in bulk, portion it into 1-gallon Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and seal them. Each bag holds about 7 pounds and costs me less than $3 to store for 25 years. Most people buy jasmine rice because it is trendy. That is the first rice that disappears. Parboiled rice, since they're ignored, fully stocked, dirt cheap. Number 7. Canned coconut milk. Full fat. Not the carton stuff for cereal. The canned kind with 17 to 20% fat. Here's a fact that changes everything. Coconut milk is one of the few shelf-stable fat sources that is not grain-dependent. It comes from coconuts, which grow in Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia. Those supply chains are separate from the Midwest grain system, which means when wheat and corn prices spike, coconut milk stays stable longer. Right now, a 13-ounce can cost about $2. I buy cases of 12 from Asian grocery stores for $20. That is $1.67 per can. By mid-2026, with shipping costs rising and import restrictions tightening, that same can will be $4 or more. Here is the magic. Coconut milk has fat, which your body needs. Not wants, needs. You can use it in curry, soup, coffee, oatmeal, smoothies, baking. One can have 50 grams of fat. That is more than most people get in an entire day during a crisis. I made a pot of chicken curry during a snowstorm last year using 1 can of coconut milk, dried lentils, and bouillon cubes. Fed 5 people. Cost $7. Most preppers are hoarding freeze-dried meals that taste like cardboard. Coconut milk makes cheap staples taste incredible and keeps your body running. Number 8. Dried split peas. Green or yellow. Here is what people do not connect. Split peas and lentils come from the same growing regions, but split peas are even cheaper and even more ignored. Right now, a 1-pound bag of dried split peas costs about $1.20. I bought a 25-pound sack for $24. That is 96 cents per pound. The 2026 Pulse crop reports are projecting the same yield drops as lentils, but nobody is talking about split peas. By next year, that 1-pound bag will be $3.50 or more. Here's a mechanic. Split peas cook in about 40 minutes with no soaking. You can make split pea soup, hummus, thickened stews, or mash them into a base for veggie burgers. They store for 10 years minimum in an airtight container. I opened a jar from 2019 last month, cooked them up, tasted perfect. Most people think split peas are boring. They are right. But boring food that costs $1 a pound and stores for a decade is worth more than fancy food you cannot afford or find. Number 9 is something nobody is watching. Peanut butter powder. Not regular peanut butter in the jar, the powdered kind. Here is why it matters. Peanut butter powder is made by pressing peanuts to remove most of the oil, then grinding what is left into powder. It has 85% less fat than regular peanut butter, which means it stores way longer. Regular peanut butter goes rancid in about a year after opening. Peanut butter powder stores for 4 to 5 years unopened, 2 years after opening. Right now, a 1-pound container costs about $8 and makes the equivalent of 4 pounds of regular peanut butter when you add water. The 2025 peanut harvest in Georgia and Alabama is already showing fungus issues and lower yields. Peanut prices are going to spike. By late 2026, that same container of powder will be $16 to $18. Here is how I use it. Mix 2 tablespoons with a little water to make peanut butter, or add it dry to oatmeal smoothies baking. I made no bake energy bars last week using peanut butter powder, oats, honey, and a little coconut oil. Costs about $6 for 20 bars. Most people do not even know peanut butter powder exists, which is exactly why it is always in stock. Number 10. Canned chicken, not fresh or frozen. Canned. The 12-ounce cans packed in water. Here is the brutal truth. Poultry prices are tied directly to grain prices because chickens eat corn and soy. The 2026 corn projections are ugly. Early data is showing a 14% yield drop in the Corn Belt due to flooding and late planting. That means chicken feed costs go up, which means chicken prices double. Right now, a 12-ounce can of chicken costs about $3. I buy them in cases of 12 for $32. That is $2.67 per can. By next year, that same can will be $6 or more. Here's the value. A 12-ounce can has about 60 grams of protein. You can make chicken salad, add it to soup, mix it with rice, make quesadillas, tacos, casseroles. It stores for 5 years minimum. I opened a can from 2020 last summer. Drained it, mixed it with mayo and relish. Tasted completely normal. Most people ignore canned chicken because they think it is gross. It is not amazing, but it is real protein that does not need refrigeration and will still be available when fresh chicken is $10 a pound. Number 11 is a weird one. Nutritional yeast. Before you click away thinking this is vegan hippie food, hear me out. Nutritional yeast is deactivated yeast that is grown on molasses, then dried into flakes. It tastes like cheese and nuts. Here is the fact nobody knows. Nutritional yeast is one of the only plant sources of complete B vitamins, including B12. 2 tablespoons have more B vitamins than most people get in 2 days. Right now, a 10-ounce container costs about $9. That container lasts me about 4 months. By 2026, with molasses prices rising and specialty foods getting cut from supply chains, that same container will be $18 or more. Here is how I use it. Sprinkle it on popcorn, Mix it into mashed potatoes. Add it to soup or pasta for a cheesy flavor without dairy. During a 2-week power outage last winter, I used nutritional yeast to make bland rice and beans taste like actual food. My kids ate it. That is the real test. Most preppers have never heard of nutritional yeast, which means it is always fully stocked at health food stores in the organic section. Number 12. Dry black beans. Not canned, dried. Here is what most people miss. Black. Beans are grown primarily in North Dakota, Michigan, and Nebraska, the same northern regions that got hit with late spring freezes in 2025. The USDA post-crop report from June showed early projections of a 17% yield drop for black beans. Right now, a 1-pound bag of dried black beans costs about $1.50. I buy 25-pound sacks for $32. That is $1.28 per pound. By mid-2026, that 1-pound bag will be $4 minimum. Here's a mechanic. Dry black beans take about 90 minutes to cook after soaking, or you can pressure cook them in 25 minutes with no soaking. They are 22% protein. They store for 10 years or more in airtight containers. You can make black bean soup, tacos, burritos, burgers, hummus, or mash them into refried beans. I opened a bucket of black beans last year that I sealed in 2017. Cooked perfectly. Tasted normal. Most panic buyers grab canned beans, which are 4 times the price and take up way more space. Dry black beans sit there ignored. Number 13. Honey. Real honey. Not the fake stuff cut with corn syrup. Here is the insight that changes everything. Real honey never spoils. Never. Archaeologists found honey in Egyptian tombs that was over 3,000 years old and still edible. Right now, a 32-ounce jar of real honey costs about $12 at most stores. I buy raw honey in 5-pound jugs from local beekeepers for $35. That is a little over $2 per pound. By late 2026, with bee colony collapse issues and pollinator shortages affecting crops, honey prices are going to spike. That same jar will be $20 to $25. Here is why honey is critical. It is pure carbohydrates, which means instant energy. You can use it as a sweetener, medicine for sore throats and coughs, or an antibacterial for minor cuts. I use honey in tea, oatmeal, baking, and energy bars. 1 tablespoon has 64 calories. Most preppers ignore honey because it seems expensive. But it is literally the only food that lasts longer than you or I will be alive. Number 14. This is the one I mentioned earlier. Rice vermicelli noodles. The thin, dried noodles you find at Asian grocery stores. Here is what nobody connects. Rice vermicelli is made from rice flour, but it is processed and stored differently than regular rice. It is cheaper, lighter, cooks faster, and almost nobody in the prepper community knows about it. Right now, a 1-pound package of rice vermicelli costs about $2 at Asian markets. I bought a case of 30 packages for $52. That is $1.73 per pound. By 2026, with rice prices spiking, that same package will be $5 or more. Here is the magic. Rice vermicelli cooks in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. You just pour boiling water over it and let it sit. You can use it in soup, stir-fry, spring rolls, cold noodle salad. It stores for 2 years easily, longer if kept dry and cool. I made a giant pot of noodle soup last year during a blizzard using rice vermicelli, canned chicken, bouillon cubes, and dried veggies. Took 7 minutes start to finish. Fed 6 people. Cost about $8. Most panic buyers have never even walked down the Asian food aisle, which means rice vermicelli will still be sitting there fully stocked. Number 15. Can evaporated milk, not sweetened condensed milk. Evaporated milk. Here is the difference. Evaporated milk is just milk with 60% of the water removed. Condensed milk has added sugar. Evaporated milk can be used in cooking, coffee, baking, or diluted with water to drink. Right now, a 12-ounce can cost about $1.50. I buy cases of 24 for $32. That is $1.33 per can. By 2026, with dairy prices climbing, that same will be $3 or more. Here is the value. Each can make about 24 ounces of usable milk when you add water. It stores for 1 to 2 years on the shelf. I use evaporated milk in mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, and coffee during a power outage last spring. Worked perfectly. Most people buy powdered milk and ignore evaporated milk completely. That is exactly why it is always in stock. Number 16. Cornmeal, not corn flour. Cornmeal, the coarse ground stuff for cornbread and polenta. Here is what people do not realize. Cornmeal is made from whole corn kernels, which means it still has a germ and oil. That makes it more nutritious than corn flour, but it also means it goes rancid faster. You want to buy cornmeal and immediately store in the freezer or in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers. Right now, a 5-pound bag of cornmeal costs about $4. By late 2026, with corn yields dropping and prices spiking, that same bag will be $10 or more. Here is a mechanic. Cornmeal makes cornbread, hush puppies, polenta, breading for fried foods, or you can cook like oatmeal. I store cornmeal in 1-gallon Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. It stays good for 5 years that way. Most people buy wheat flour and ignore cornmeal. Cornmeal will still be there. Number 17. Dried onion flakes. Not fresh onions. Not onion powder. Dried onion flakes. Here is why it matters. Fresh onions spoil. Onion powder loses flavor fast. Dried onion flakes rehydrate in liquid and taste almost identical to fresh onions. Right now, an 8-ounce container of dried onion flakes costs about $6. That container equals about 15 fresh onions. By 2026, with vegetable prices rising and supply chain delays hitting fresh produce hardest, that same container will be $12 to $14. Here is how I use them. Add them directly to soup, stew, chili, rice, pasta sauce. They rehydrate in the liquid and add flavor and texture. I opened a jar from 2020 last fall. Still tasted great. Most people ignore dried onion flakes because they think fresh is better. Fresh is better until you cannot get it or it costs $4 per onion. Number 18. Shelf-stable tofu. Not the refrigerated kind. The kind in the aseptic box that does not need refrigeration. Here is what nobody talks about. Shelf-stable tofu is made from soybeans and water, sealed in a sterile box, and lasts for a year on the shelf. Right now, a 12-ounce box costs about $2.50. By 2026, with soybean prices climbing due to drought and export restrictions, that same box will be $5 or more. Here is the value. Tofu is 10% protein. It absorbs any flavor you add to it. You can scramble it, bake it, fry it, add it to soup, or crumble it into pasta sauce. I used shelf-stable tofu during a camping trip last summer. Opened the box, drained it, fried it with soy sauce and garlic. Tasted great. Most preppers ignore tofu because they think it is weird vegan food. That is exactly why it will still be there. Number 19. Canned pumpkin. Not pumpkin pie filling. Pure pumpkin puree. Here is a fact nobody connects. Canned pumpkin is just cooked, mashed pumpkin. Nothing else. It is 100% vegetable. It is high in fiber and vitamin A. Right now, a 15-ounce can cost about $1.50. I buy cases of 12 during the fall for $16. That is $1.33 per can. By 2026, with vegetable processing costs rising, that same can will be $3.50 or more. Here is how I use it. Mix it into oatmeal, baking, soup, chili, pasta sauce. It thickens and adds nutrition without changing the flavor much. I made pumpkin pancakes last winter using canned pumpkin, oats, and powdered milk. My kids love them. Most people only buy canned pumpkin in November. The rest of the year, it sits there fully stocked and cheap. Number 20. Soy sauce. The big bottle. Not the fancy artisan stuff. Regular soy sauce. Here is why it is critical. Soy sauce is pure salt and umami. It makes anything taste better. Right now, a 64-ounce bottle costs about $8. By 2026, with soybean prices spiking and import costs rising, that same bottle will be $16 or more. Here's a mechanic. 1 tablespoon of soy sauce can flavor an entire pot of rice, soup, or stir fry. It stores indefinitely. I have a bottle from 2018. Still tastes perfect. Most people ignore soy sauce because it seems basic. That is exactly why it will still be available. Number 21. Dried potato flakes. Instant mashed potatoes. Here is what people miss. Instant mashed potatoes are just cooked potatoes that have been dehydrated. Add hot water, and they rehydrate into mashed potatoes. Right now, a 26-ounce box costs about $4. By 2026, with potato crop issues in Idaho and Washington, that same box will be $8 or more. Here's the value. Instant mashed potatoes cook in 2 minutes. You can eat them as mashed potatoes, use them to thicken soup, or add them to bread dough. They store for 5 years minimum. Most people think they taste bad. They are right if you eat them plain. Add butter, salt, and garlic powder. They taste fine. Number 22. Canned sardines, packed in oil or water. Here's the brutal truth. Sardines are one of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth. One contains 23 grams of protein, omega, 3 fats, calcium, vitamin D, and B12. Right now, it can cost about $2. By 2026, with fish stocks declining and import restrictions tightening, that same will be $5 or more. Here is how I use them. Eat them straight from the can, mash them into a spread, add them to pasta, or mix them into rice. I opened a can from 2019 last week. Tasted completely normal. Most people think sardines are gross. They are wrong, but their ignorance keeps sardines in stock. While everyone else is panic buying the same stuff and paying double next year, you now know 22 staples that are cheaper, easier to store, and will actually still be available when the mainstream items are gone. Drop a comment and tell me which one of these you're going to stock up on first. Next week, I am breaking down the 7 prepper foods everyone swears by that are actually useless in a real crisis. Trust me, you do not want to miss that one.